Folks, Canada is absolutely furious at Donald Trump and his regime, and Canada won't be bullied. Canada's strong. Let me tell you what Canada's doing, just so you see how united it is. And our Canadian supporters know this. So you have Stephen Harper, one of the former prime ministers of Canada from 2006 to 2015, who by his own self-admission, he says, I was the most pro-American Canadian prime minister there was. Anything America wanted to do, I was for it. And he goes, and if you asked me originally when Donald Trump was elected, I would have said, I think there are some opportunities there. He goes, boy, was I wrong. Essentially, he goes, the current government, Prime Minister Carney, reached out to me and said, what would you do, Harper, in a situation like this, knowing that that was, my background, being the most pro-American prime minister of Canada. And I said, you've got to stand up to the United States. You got to push back. We've got to become far less reliant on the United States. The United States is not a reliable ally. Now, he said this at a conference recently that took place in Saskatoon, Canada. And I mean, this coming from Stephen Harper is, and again, conservative prime minister. Here's what he has to say. Here, play this clip.
Look, I was just gonna put it in this context, just so everyone understands. I think it's fair to say, probably the most pro-American prime minister in Canadian history. And I tell people that if a year ago, the government had asked me, President Trump's coming in, he's talking about, big challenges on trade, USMCA, tariffs. What would you advise? I would have said a year ago, this is a real opportunity for Canada to really deepen its economic and security partnership with the United States. However, when this government did actually ask me, a few weeks ago, my advice was the opposite. My advice was, yes, on the economy, we've got to kind of get something short-term worked out with the Trump administration, but this really is a wake-up call for this country to truly diversify its trade export markets. That's why we did sign the trade deals all around the world, Europe, Asia, Pacific, the Americas. And Canada has been, to be blunt, this is, nothing against the US. The reality is, independent of the current disputes, Canada has been, to use business term, and I'm in the investment business now, we have been grossly overweight the United States as a country. And there is no reason for that. Just because we have that geographic proximity does not justify the degree of dependence that we have on a single market, which is sometimes disadvantageous. And the other thing, in terms of security, my advice to the government is, yes, absolutely spend more on defense. We should have been doing it all along. But while we spend a lot more in defense, while the border is a shared responsibility, let's make sure we spend a lot more on defense so that we can be independently responsible for our own land, seas, and skies, independent of the United States. And I'm just going to tell you right now, one political role I still have, I chair the Global Federation of Conservative Parties, and I can tell you that this is the advice every allied capital is getting from everybody like me that they talk to. And this is not ideal, but I just think it's a reality. The cat's out of the bag. or toothpaste is out of the tube, whatever you want to call it. You can't put it back. I think it's unfortunate. I think in the long term, this direction will weaken the free world more than it will help it. And it will, I think, ultimately weaken the United States as well. So I think it's unfortunate, but that is the reality of the situation that we have to deal with.
I mean, you heard him there in his own words. Now, let me show you what Prime Minister Carney said yesterday when he was there touting bridge development in Canada, bringing Canada together, part of his kind of One Canada plan. And here's what he says when it comes to doing a deal with the United States. He goes, I'm only going to do it if it benefits Canada. We're not going to get bullied into things. I'm not entering into bad deals on behalf of Canada. We're going to stand up against Trump, and we're going to become less reliant on the United States. Here is Prime Minister Carney yesterday. Here, play this clip.
How likely is the deal by deadline? And what do you say to industry who are obviously anxious about this upcoming deadline?
Yeah, let me start with the second part of your question, which is industry, businesses, Canadians. They are anxious and they are concerned. They don't deserve the uncertainty that's been thrust upon them. They don't like it. They like resolution, but they'd also like they want the right kind of resolution. They want a deal that makes sense for Canada, that makes sense for Canadian business, for Canadian workers. The negotiations are at a intense phase. It's a complex negotiation. You see with the various trade deals that have been agreed by other jurisdictions, European Union yesterday, Japan before, Indonesia, etc., the United Kingdom, that there are many aspects to these negotiations. We're engaged in them. But the assurance for Canadian business, for Canadians, is we will only sign a deal that's the right deal, that's a good deal for Canada. We're representing Canada. We're standing up for Canada. The United States and Canada can do many good things together. We have done that in the past. We can do more in the future, but on fair terms for our country.
And he was asked another question about doing deals with Trump and where they are at in the process of the trade deal. And notice what Prime Minister Carney says here. He goes, there's a zone of possibilities for a deal. He goes, but we're not going to enter into stupid deals. So if you're in that zone and it's in the interest of Canada, we're open to it, but we're not going to do things that are against Canada's interest. Just period, full stop. Here, play this clip.
Is it your expectation that any deal that we may be near would be somewhere in the ballpark what we just seen with the Europeans, 15% across the board? Is that acceptable?
Well, look, we have some similarities with the European Union in terms of our commercial relationships with the United States. We're one of their most important trade partners. Number two, depending on how you measure it, both imports and exports. We, like the European Union, are one of the largest investors in the United States. Our companies, our pension funds, others invest heavily in the United States. We are also partners in defense and security with the United States, as you saw with the agreements at NATO just last month. So there are similarities. There are differences. One is geographic proximity. Secondly is Europe. I'll give you one example of the difference. Europe, in that agreement yesterday, made commitments to buy American energy. Europe needs to fully get itself off Russian energy. So they're going to buy American energy to help them do that. America needs Canadian energy. You get a Canadian electricity. The only reason we run They run a trade deficit with Canada in goods and commodities is because they import around 4 million barrels a day in Canadian energy, as well as that electricity and other. So we're in a different position. Similarities, there are differences, and that is why these negotiations, whether it's with our negotiations, which is all where we're focused, but whether it's the other ones with Japan or European Union, they're different. They're tough negotiations, as they should be. As I say, we're standing up for Canada, Canadian interests. Of course, the United States is looking out. The president's looking out for the interests of American workers. There is a landing zone that's possible, but we have to get there, and we'll see what happens.
Does that landing zone include supply management in any way? Are you open to more U.S. access to the Canadian market for dairy?
We've been clear about supply management. We've been clear about language rights as things that are fundamental to our structure. The access, there was access negotiated, and as part of, as Minister Freeland knows, as part of the existing USMCA, as they would call it, CUSMA Accord. And the question is the the effectiveness of those arrangements. So look, we're going to, as I say, we'll stand up for Canada's best interests.
Switching gears for a minute, let's talk about one of the most dangerous moves coming out of the Trump administration right now. And no, this one's not getting enough attention. Trump's Environmental Protection Agency, now headed by far-right former Congressman Lee Zeldin, is preparing to eliminate the endangerment finding. And it's a cornerstone of U.S. climate action. That is the 2009 scientific determination that greenhouse gases endanger public health and welfare. Without that, the legal foundation for regulating emissions, it's gone. That's right. They are claiming that greenhouse gases don't endanger people, and they are using that lie to destroy regulations that protect people and the climate. Zeldin calls this the holy grail of the climate change religion. You know what I call it? An attempt to gut the very framework that allows the government to fight the climate crisis. And this move comes in the same week the United Nations top court, yes, the International Court of Justice, issued a unanimous opinion stating that countries have a legal duty under international law to protect the environment from man-made greenhouse gas emissions. Let that sink in. The rest of the world is moving forward while Trump's America is sprinting backwards. Zeldin claims it's about lowering costs for families, but the ICJ put it plainly. A clean environment is a prerequisite for basic human rights like the right to health, life, and access to water and food. What we're seeing is a full-scale dismantling of science, diplomacy, and public health, and it's not just the climate on the line, it's America's standing in the world too. While 130 nations backed a call for global climate accountability, Trump is leaving the US isolated, clinging to fossil-fueled fantasies while the planet burns. This isn't policy. It's sabotage, and we can't afford to be quiet about it. So do this right now. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. Keep making noise. Make sure that they know that we are watching their every move. Okay, Ben, back to you.
And again, look, Prime Minister Carney reaching out to a former conservative Prime Minister, Stephen Harper. They don't see eye to eye on most issues, but the fact that they're talking to each other, I think is powerful. Well, he's not going to reach out to Pierre Poilievre, I'll tell you that much. But then you have David Eby, the premier of British Columbia, and Eby's NDP, New Democratic Party, further left than the Liberal Party. And you'll see that there's all alignment, here. Again, Pierre Poilievre's a phony and he's kind of Maple MAGA, but, Harper, traditional Conservative Party, Canada, Prime Minister Harper, Prime Minister Carney, Liberal Party, David Eby, NDP, premier of British Columbia. Here's what he has to say. Here, play this clip.
Today, I'm announcing a second call for power, an additional 5,000 gigawatts of clean energy that we're calling for to be produced here in British Columbia, enough to power 500,000 homes, as well as major industrial projects across the province. It is an economic driver in every corner of British Columbia for communities right across this beautiful province of ours. And it's a reflection of two things. One is our commitment to grow our economy, to ensure that we're standing strong as British Columbians. We're relying on our advantages, and we're supporting growth in the industries in which we're strong. And the second is that we believe that climate change is real, that we understand that we have a role to play here in British Columbia in driving down emissions, and clean electricity is the way that we're going to do it. And we're going to address climate change at the same time as we're growing our economy. And I couldn't help but notice the President of the United States, Donald Trump, saying that he doesn't like those windmills that produce electricity. They interfere with the views from his golf courses. Let me tell you, to all American clean energy producers, come relocate to British Columbia. We are the clean energy capital of the world. We're going to do it. We're creating energy here. We're supportive of clean energy, and we will continue to be so. You can join the amazing more than 700 medical professionals that have applied to join our health service from the United States, and we welcome you, and you are welcome here.
Right now, when that was taking place, before Donald Trump took that disastrous trip of his to Scotland, where he made a complete fool of the United States, as he was talking about his dark past with Jeffrey Epstein. Here's what Donald Trump said in the past few days regarding the tariffs regarding Canada. He goes, we haven't had a lot of luck with Canada. He goes, I think Canada could be one where they just pay tariffs. it's not really a negotiation. That's how Donald Trump classifies his discussions with Canada. Here, play this clip.
We will have most of our deals finished, if not all. We haven't really had a lot of luck with Canada. I think Canada could be one where they'll just pay tariffs, not really a negotiation. We're working very diligently with Europe, the EU, which covers a lot of territory, a lot of countries, and that's the big one right now. We have the confines of a deal with China, but we haven't really. We don't have a deal with Canada. We haven't been focused on it.
Now, one of the things that Canada's doing as well is it's, as Stephen Harper said, as Prime Minister Carney said, less reliant on the U.S. And you heard Harper say that's what he hears from all of the other countries in the rest of the world too. Goodbye, America. See you later, United States. And Trump, we ain't doing business with you anymore. Or we're minimizing that business because you're frankly not reliable. I mean, you're like a Kim Jong-un regime at this point. So one of the things we've seen recently, too, is Canada strengthening relationships across the board. But the Canada-Mexico relationship, to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars potentially in trade, bypassing the United States in their trade relationships. If you had the USMCA, maybe you just have the MCA, Mexico and Canada, at this point. So you've had President Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico having these very productive, respectful meetings with Prime Minister Carney of Canada. And they've really talked about going around the United States, either formally or informally, building trade relationships that literally go right past the U.S. because the U.S. can't be trusted. I just want to show you what it's like to see leaders who have respect for each other and who behave normal. Because when that blabbering sexual predator Donald Trump shows up at these meetings and that's my impression of him, just gross. And he just says, "Oh, don't you windmills? We hate windmill." I mean, just the crazy stuff. Jeffrey Epstein, the privilege of going to the islands. Dude, shut up. But let me show you Prime Minister Carney, President Claudia Sheinbaum, when they saw each other at the G7. Here, play this clip.
The neutral media, so we call instead of unfriendly media who will come in. You bring them in, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna give you a present.
Just told me. I don't even know what it is, but
Okay.
I'll say welcome to you first, and then how about you give me a present?
Now look at this really respectful dialogue between them. Here, play this clip.
It is a great honor to welcome President Sheinbaum to the G7. It was immediately clear from our first discussion in the other room, the enduring value of the president's leadership and the importance of Mexico being at the center of international cooperation. And if I may, Madam President, I'm going to quote you that there is no progress unless it's shared. And this is the spirit that the president brings, that Mexico brings, and that Canada shares with you.
Thank you. Muchas gracias, Primer Ministro,
Thank you so much, Prime Minister,
por esta invitación.
for this invitation.
Ha sido muy importante para nosotros. Valoramos mucho la relación con Canadá.
We highly value the relationship with Canada. It has been very important
en comercio,
for
sino
us.
también en cultura, en amistad. Muchos mexicanos también viven aquí en Canadá.
In
Le
trade, culture,
agradecemos
and
mucho
friendship.
la invitación y quiero hacerle un regalo. Porque vamos a tener el próximo año una
Pelota.
mundial compartido. Este está hecho por indígenas wixárika. Entonces es un regalo.
Oh,
This is a gift for you. We're
This
going
is
to have the
fantastic.
this is
shared
fantastic.
World Cup next
Yeah.
year. So this is a gift for you from
Es la amistad a través del
indigenous
deporte.
communities.
This is wonderful, and this is an area where Mexico, Canada, and our third co-host,
Yes, right.
the other president, we are totally aligned in
President
our
Trump.
excitement, enthusiasm for the beautiful game,
That's right.
and co-hosting in a sign of friendship. So thank you very much. This is wonderful. I'm going to put it right here.
Muchísimas gracias.
Now, I'll show you the disrespectful dialogue of the U.S. ambassador to Canada. Just watch how this guy talks about Canada. Really, Hookstra, really horrific stuff. Here, play this clip.
What is the president thinking about? Oh, they just slapped a brand new tax on us that we've told them for months is an unfair tax. Oh, by the way, you have 11 out of your 13 provinces who ban American products on their shelves. We haven't banned a single Canadian product in the United States. That's a pretty nasty move, okay? You have a number of your provinces have put in provisions into their procurement process that say, oh, if you're an American company, you can't bid. That's pretty nasty.
Yeah, but that was in response to the U.S. slapping major tariffs on this country.
Exactly right now.
So responding is nasty? I'm just trying to get to the heart of this, Ambassador.
Where we are today.
And here he is again. Let's play this clip.
We only have a moment left.
There's a lot we could say about supply management. Absolutely.
And I do want to ask you about the 51st state. You had to have known this question was coming because, of course, the president brought it up again over the weekend. It does seem to come up when things are getting a bit tense and a bit intense. Is Donald Trump using threats against Canada's sovereignty as a negotiating tactic?
It is not a threat.
How is it saying that Canada should become a state? He said we're not a real country before.
I think, your prime minister, I forget what he said within the last week or something, and said, this is he didn't use exactly this word, but a term of endearment. He
has said it's a wish, a desire, rather than necessarily a reality. You think it's a term of endearment, Ambassador Hookstra?
Yeah, President Trump doesn't invite people onto his team who he doesn't like, who he doesn't trust, who he doesn't respect. He wants a strong team.
So your message to Canadians is they should see this 51st state talk as a term of endearment.
They can see it however they want. Far be it from me to tell Canadians how they should view the president's comments. But the president does not invite people on his team, on America's team, or to grow our team with the belief that by doing so, we're going to weaken America or weaken them.
But ultimately, as Prime Minister Carney says, Canada holds a lot of cards, right? They're the biggest client in the world of the United States. Already we're seeing Canada's boycott impacting tourism in the United States, right? We're seeing Canada's boycott impacting a lot of states being impacted, like the boycott on bourbon and wine and things like that, and in general, Canada provides, a ton of energy to the United States. And when it comes to home building, with lumber, there's just so much, Canada demands respect and it deserves respect. And the Donald Trump dialogue is so utterly disrespectful and, elbows up, Canada, elbows up, Maple Midas. We've got that announcement soon. Me and Charlie Angus. It's coming soon. We're just dotting I's, crossing T's. I can't tell you much more than that. I'm going to tease it out a little bit. Maple Midas. Maple Midas. All right, everybody, hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million. Thanks for watching.
Can't get enough Meidas? Check out the Meidas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.